My job as a night guard pays $20 an hour and has strange rules to follow. I should have suspected something was amiss when I stumbled upon the job listing. It was on one of those lesser-known online job portals, the kind where people in dire need scrounge for opportunities. Being in a tight spot myself, I clicked without hesitation. Night shift security guard needed, $25 per hour. The salary was unusually high for a standard security job, but having recently finished high school and still residing in my parents' basement, where hints were increasingly being dropped about moving out, I wasn't going to question this unexpected boon. Without much deliberation, I sent off my application. To my astonishment, a reply came within an hour inviting me to an interview that very night, despite it being past 8 p.m. Odd time, I thought, but maybe that's the norm for night shift roles. I quickly dressed in the best outfit I could find and headed to the address provided. The location was a dilapidated industrial zone on the city's fringes, surrounded by seemingly deserted warehouses with shattered windows. However, the building I was looking for had lights on, a small relief. I parked my old Honda Civic and approached a stark metal door. Absent was any sign of a company name, only a makeshift sign that instructed, "Interviews, knock and enter." With a mix of reluctance and curiosity, I knocked and entered. Inside, the flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows over the worn linoleum flooring. At the reception, a disinterested middle-aged woman sat behind the counter, barely acknowledging my presence. Hi, I started somewhat uneasily. "I'm here for the night security job." She silently pushed a clipboard towards me without looking up. Grabbing it, I noticed it was a contract filled with rules and regulations. "Remember the rules," I reminded myself, trying to settle into the rickety office chair for a long night ahead. The first hour passed without incident. I kept up with the required 30-minute radio check-ins, but only static answered back. The building's silence was unsettling. I regretted not bringing some music or a podcast to fill the void. Just as the clock struck midnight, faint footsteps echoed from the depths of the warehouse. My pulse quickened. My initial instinct was to call out, but Rule 2 flashed in my mind: do not interact with anyone. I bit back my words and listened intently, trying to pinpoint the direction of the sounds. The footsteps grew louder, closer. A shadowy figure passed by the security desk from the corner of my eye. Its shape was vaguely human, but its movements were jerky and unnatural, as if it wasn't quite familiar with walking. My hands trembled as I pretended to busy myself with the logbook, not daring to lift my gaze. The figure stopped beside me. The sound of its raspy breathing filled the space, and I felt the weight of its stare. Every fiber of my being urged me to look up, to confront whatever was watching me, but the rules held me back. It felt like ages before the footsteps continued and gradually disappeared into the void of the warehouse. I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. What in the world was that? I thought, shaken. The desire to flee was overwhelming, yet the need for the job and the binding contract kept me in place. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head. The following hours crawled by, each creak and moan of the aging structure setting me on edge. The radio check-ins became my anchor to reality, reassuring me with every press of the button. At 1 a.m., another rule loomed: no looking out the windows until 4 a.m. Not that it mattered. There were no windows in sight from the security desk, but curiosity gnawed at me. What was out there that needed to be hidden from my view? Just past 2 a.m., the singing began. Initially, it was a soft, melodic sound that seemed to drift in from outside, luring me with its tranquility. In a frantic rush, I reached for the noise-canceling headphones, but not before the melody twisted into something horrific. It transformed into a symphony of screams and wails, a disturbing chorus of pain that penetrated the air. My hands trembled as I secured the headphones over my ears, my heartbeat thundering against my chest as if trying to escape. Even with the headphones, the cries were faintly audible, a mixture of possibly hundreds of voices, each one shrieking in agony, begging for release. I clenched my eyes shut and turned up the white noise to its maximum, tears streaking down my cheeks as I rocked in the chair, desperate for it to end. The dreadful symphony seemed to stretch indefinitely. By the time I mustered enough courage to remove the headphones, silence had reclaimed the warehouse. My check-in was shaky, my voice barely above a whisper, half expecting the screams to return, but only static greeted me. The remainder of the night was a blur of fear and fatigue. Shadows seemed to crawl, every noise made me jolt. Multiple times I caught glimpses of faces lurking in the darkness, vanishing the moment I dared to stare directly at them. My grip on reality was faltering. As my watch neared 5:50 a.m., Relief washed over me. Just 5 more minutes, and I could escape. I began to pack my things, ready to bolt at 5:55, but then the knocking started. It echoed from the main entrance, loud and urgent. I froze, Rule 3 echoing in my mind. Do not open any doors. The knocking intensified, desperate. Then a voice, a young woman's, pleaded through the door. Hello? Please, is anyone there? My car broke down and my phone's dead. Can I just use your phone to call a tow truck? She sounded scared, helpless. A part of me, the part trained to assist, wanted to rush to her aid. Isn't that what a security guard is supposed to do? Yet, the strict rules loomed over me, threatening my job. The conflict was paralyzing, and deep down, I understood that being terminated might carry a far more sinister meaning than just job dismissal. I can hear you in there, the voice escalated, now tinged with anger. Why won't you help me? What's wrong with you? The knocking grew into violent pounding. I could hear the door's frame struggling to hold. Glancing at my watch, it showed 5:54 a.m., just 1 more minute to endure. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the pounding ceased. An unsettling silence fell, only to be broken by the chilling sound of metal grinding on metal. My heart sank as I watched the door begin to warp, as if a monstrous force was attempting to break through. The moment my watch signaled 5:55 a.m., I didn't hesitate. I ran, sprinting through the dark labyrinth of corridors, the need for silence long forgotten. A guttural roar echoed behind me as the door finally succumbed. Something, or some things, had entered, and they were in pursuit. I exploded out of the fire exit, racing towards my car. As I fumbled with the keys, a compelled glance back offered a sight that would forever haunt my nightmares. The door I had just fled through hung limply by its frame, and from its shadows emerged a grotesque figure. In the brief moment I saw it, my mind failed to fully comprehend its form, a monstrous hybrid of various animals and humans, all fused into a singular, abominable entity. It stared back with an unnerving multitude of eyes. Without another second's pause, I slammed my car into gear, tires screeching as I sped away. In the rearview mirror, I watched other abhorrent creatures spill from the warehouse, unleashed by the dawn's early light. I drove until my gas nearly ran out, my hands trembling uncontrollably on the wheel. It was only when I felt a semblance of safety parked in a gas station lot with the sun rising that I allowed myself to break down. Tears flowed freely as relief mingled with terror. Though I knew I could never return, my mind buzzed with haunting questions. What was the true nature of that place? What grim fate had befallen others who had not escaped as I had? And now, the most troubling thought of all, having glimpsed behind the curtain, would those monstrous entities come seeking me? One resolution became crystal clear. I would never respond to a dubious job posting again. The risks far outweigh any potential reward, especially if I manage to survive long enough to consider employment again. As I sit here recounting these events, a distant singing invades the silence, growing ominously louder with each passing moment. It has been 3 tumultuous days since that nightmarish experience at the warehouse. Days filled with paranoia, restless glances over my shoulder, and sleepless nights haunted by shadows. I haven't shared my story with anyone. Who would believe such a fantastical tale? I sometimes doubt my own sanity, wondering if perhaps it was all a stress-induced illusion. Yet, deep within, I'm certain it was real. The fear was too palpable, too piercing to be anything but genuine. And there have been other unsettling occurrences. Just yesterday, while attempting to blend into normalcy at the grocery store, my heart froze. The cashier, for a fleeting moment, appeared to be the same woman from the warehouse who had hired me. A second glance revealed only a confused teenager staring back at me, asking if I was okay, remarking that I looked as though I'd seen a ghost. If only he knew how apt his words were. I hurried away, but as I headed to my car, the faint strains of that singing reached my ears again. In a panic, I shut myself in the car and turned up the radio, desperate to drown out the haunting melody. Last night brought new horrors. Holed up in a nondescript motel, too terrified to return home lest those creatures find me, I lay in bed staring at a water-stained ceiling when a knock shattered the stillness. It was past midnight. No sane person would knock at this hour. Then that eerily familiar voice called out again, pleading for help due to a car breakdown and a dead phone. The same request, the same voice that had beckoned from outside the warehouse. My heart raced as I lay frozen, the past nightmare threatening to become my present reality. It was unmistakably the same voice from that harrowing night at the warehouse, the one that had tried to coax me into opening the door. Lying there, I was paralyzed, my breathing shallow as the knocking intensified. The voice then morphed, abandoning any facade of humanity. "I know you're in there," it growled menacingly. "You can't hide from us forever. You signed the contract. You belong to us now?" The door rattled alarmingly, mirroring that terrifying moment at the warehouse. I clenched my eyes shut, reciting the rules under my breath like a mantra for survival. Don't open the door. Don't acknowledge them. Don't look out the windows. The ordeal seemed endless, but eventually, the cacophony ceased. When courage finally seeped back into my veins, allowing me to peer out the window, the motel parking lot appeared desolate without any indication of the night's disturbances. At the break of dawn, I hastily checked out of the motel and hit the road, the unsettling realization dawning on me that I couldn't afford to stay in one place for too long. They would find me if I did. As I drove, thoughts of the cryptic list of rules haunted me. Why those particular directives? What horrors awaited had I defied them? Part of me yearned to have looked out the window during those forbidden hours, to confront whatever lay beyond. Yet, a greater part of me trembled at the possibility that I might still discover the truth. Traveling has sharpened my perception, highlighting details most would dismiss, but which now scream for attention. Each town I pass, no matter its size, harbors at least one anomalous structure. A warehouse with windows darkened, an office building lacking any signage, always situated in desolate industrial zones, eerily quiet and motionless. How widespread are these sinister places? How many individuals are currently trapped, adhering to those bizarre rules, fighting to last until dawn? And what fate befalls those who fail? The thought of approaching the police crossed my mind, but the absurdity of my story held me back. What could I possibly tell them? "Officer, I took a job as a night watchman at a warehouse full of monsters." Yeah, that would surely endear me to the police. Best case, they'd write me off as high on something. Worst case, what if they're part of it? No, it's safer not to trust anyone. The lack of sleep is wearing me down. I keep catching glimpses of movement in the corners of my eyes, but when I snap my head around, nothing's there. Sometimes while refueling or grabbing a quick meal at a drive-thru, the employees seem off. Too many teeth or eyes slightly too large. But then I blink and they appear normal. Am I losing my grip on reality? Or are these creatures from the warehouse blending into society, biding their time to pull me back into that nightmare? I've started documenting everything. This journal is both a means to piece together what's happening and a record should I vanish. It contains the rules, every memory of that horrific night, and every strange occurrence since. If someone ever reads this, maybe they can expose the truth behind these horrors. Or perhaps they'll dismiss it as the desperate scribbles of a madman. I'm not sure which outcome I prefer anymore. As the sun sets, I realize how exhausted I am, both mentally and physically. I've been driving nonstop, and both I and my car are running on empty. I need to stop, but the thought of another night in a motel terrifies me. What if they track me down again? What if I'm awoken by that same dreadful knocking and pleading voice? Just as panic begins to set in, a neon glow in the distance catches my eye. A 24-hour diner straight out of the 1950s, promising a slice of normalcy and warmth. Hunger pangs hit me hard, a harsh reminder of my recent diet of gas station fare and endless caffeine. I steer into the nearly deserted parking lot and cut the engine. As I sit behind the wheel, gathering the nerve to step inside, a help wanted sign in the diner's window catches my eye. For a fleeting moment, I contemplate inquiring about the job. Maybe, surrounded by people and bathed in light, I'd feel a bit safer. But then the memories of the warehouse flood back, and I hesitate, the weight of my past experiences anchoring me in fear. At first, everything had seemed so normal, so unassuming. How swiftly it had all spiraled into chaos. No, I resolved, no more jobs. The risks were simply too great. Just as I was about to restart the car and flee, a figure emerged from the diner. A middle-aged man in a disheveled suit, looking as weary as one might expect of a long-haul trucker pausing for a caffeine fix. But then, he moved. There was an eerie familiarity in his jerky stride, a haunting echo of that nightmarish evening in the warehouse. Before I could process this chilling sight, he turned and our eyes locked. In that fleeting connection, a horrific realization dawned on me. He was one of them, and he recognized me. His smile widened grotesquely. Rows of needle-like teeth bared in a terrifying grin. Panic seized me as he began advancing towards my car. My hands trembled violently, fumbling with the keys in a desperate attempt to escape. The thing that masqueraded as a man quickened its pace. Heart pounding, I finally managed to start the car and sped out of the parking lot, tires screeching in protest. Glancing in the rearview mirror, I saw the figure halt in the middle of the road, still wearing that monstrous smile. Then, in a disturbing blur, its form shifted, morphing into the same nightmarish, writhing mass I had witnessed at the warehouse. Dozens of mismatched eyes blinked back at me as I fled. Driven by sheer terror and sustained by endless cups of gas station coffee, I drove through the night, directionless. All I knew was that I could not stop, could not slow, could not let them capture me, yet a voice in my mind ominously whispered that it was only a matter of time. I had signed the contract. Perched on the hood of my car, I watched the sunrise climb higher, casting its early hues across the sky. A palpable tension fills the air around me, mirroring the calm before a storm erupts. As the minute hand inches towards 6 a.m., the singing commences, echoing from every direction, yet seemingly originating from nowhere. It's hauntingly beautiful, yet fraught with terror and utterly inescapable. I shut my eyes, drawing in a deep, steadying breath, bracing myself for the arrival of 6 a.m. Uncertainty claws at me. I'm unsure whether I'll be dismembered by unseen entities, dragged back to that cursed warehouse to join the others, or perhaps mercifully awakened from this enduring nightmare. Whatever fate awaits, I'm resigned to the fact that this ordeal will finally conclude. No more fleeing, no more concealing. As the singing intensifies, I sense an immense shift within the very fabric of reality. This is it, the pivotal moment. I open my eyes to nothingness. Everything appears as it did moments ago. The sun continues its lazy journey, painting the clouds with golden and pink stroke. Birdsong fills the nearby trees, and a gentle breeze flutters the leaves. For a fleeting moment, hope sparks within me. Perhaps this has all been a figment of my imagination. Maybe I am truly free. But then, an eerie stillness sets in. Singing ceases, and with it, the natural sounds of life abruptly halt. Silence is total, as if the world itself is holding its breath in anticipation. Nervously, I slide off the car hood, my legs trembling. That's when I notice it. An anomaly in the air, a shimmer akin to heat waves on asphalt. As I focus, the distortion begins to materialize into a more defined shape, a door. It's an ordinary-looking door standing inexplicably in the middle of the scenic overlook, unsupported by any structure. It floats, a surreal gateway in the void. Every instinct urges me to flee, to jump into my car and escape as far as possible, but exhaustion overpowers my fear. I'm weary of running. Deep down, I understand that no matter the distance I could cover, this confrontation was inevitable. The door, this bizarre sentinel, was always destined to find me. As I inch closer to the door, a voice breaks through. Not the monstrous, chilling tones from before, but one that is gentle, soothing, and oddly familiar. "You did well," it commends, its source indiscernible. "Not many make it this far." "Who are you?" I ask, my voice rough from underuse. "What do you want from me?" A chuckle resonates, warm and comforting. "We are the Watchers," the voice replies. "And as for what we want, well, that's up to you now, isn't it?" The door swings open, revealing not the scenic overlook I expected, but a swirling vortex of colors and shapes, dazzling and overwhelming. "You have a choice to make," the voice continues. "You can step through this door and join us. Become a Watcher yourself. See the world as it truly is in all its beauty and horror. Or you can walk away, go back to your old life, forget everything that's happened. We'll ensure it." I laugh, a sound that morphs into a sob. "That's it? After all I've endured? The terror, the pain, I just get to choose to forget?" "The choice is never easy," the voice says, its tone tinged with sadness, "but it is yours to make." Those who choose to forget often find themselves drawn back to places like that warehouse, searching for something they can't quite recall. I ponder my life before all this madness. It seems trivial now, so inconsequential, but it was safe, normal. Do I really want to abandon that? Then my thoughts drift to the warehouse, to the nightmares I witnessed there, lurking beneath our world's veneer. If I walk away now, who will be next? Who else might endure what I did because I chose to forget? "If I join you," I ask slowly, "can I help people? Protect them from what's out there?" A warm, reassuring smile permeates the voice. "That's what being a Watcher is all about, my dear. We guard the boundaries between worlds. We guide those ready to see. And sometimes, yes, we post job listings for night watchmen." Taking a deep breath, I steady myself. "Okay," I resolve. "I'm ready." Stepping toward the door, a profound sense of peace envelops me. For the first time since that harrowing night at the warehouse, fear doesn't grip me. Whatever challenges await beyond that door, whatever trials lie ahead as a Watcher, I am certain of my decision. I cast one final glance at the world I'm leaving behind, ready to embrace the unknown.